Hello everyone, my name is Paulo and today I'm joined with...
Nathan Gomez. Welcome everyone, and today we have another guest.
My name is Samit Dubey and I come from India.
Mm-hmm. So, nice that you're here, Samit.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, would you like to just talk a little bit about where you come from? What do you study? What are you doing here in Sweden now? How comes that you ended up from warm India here in the winter in Sweden?
Yeah, sure. So I come from the north part of India. It's called New Delhi, the capital. Maybe you already know it. So I finished my high school like a couple of years ago, and I decided to go into the field of computer science because I'm very much fascinated about the technology and the pragmatic stuff that it involves. So I also just started applying in like many different countries in Europe because I was interested to come here in Europe because I consider it to be like a decent hub for technology. Well, sometimes it's considered North America, but I consider this would be better for me personally. So I started applying like Germany, Netherlands, and a bunch of different countries, and I got selected in Sweden also. So I thought that Sweden would be like the best social situations and financial situations. So I just like landed up here. But as a matter of fact, I've been studying psychology, philosophy, and religion for like 3 to 4 years now. And this is what got me interested in your podcast because it's basically about that. So that's pretty much about me.
Yeah, okay. And so today's topic is going to be what it means to be a man, part 2. So we're going to keep this series going. I think we're going to have more people coming in and just give us their opinions. So the question that we have for you is, what do you believe to be attributes that a man should possess?
All right. So in general, I can't like directly... I can't generalize very much what it means to be a man in like today's society or in general even. But as you said, the question is really precise, and I think that's a better question than just saying what it means to be a man. Yeah. Like the attributes, I would say that it's the responsibilities that you take. It's the boundaries that you make. That's what basically is what man should be like doing. It's attributes. Like women is there, kids are there, but they don't have like a perfectly balanced boundaries. That the man is the one who balances. That's why he's called the man in the house, in charge. The reason is because he balances it. It's like the one who takes responsibilities is a fatherly figure. That's what I consider a man to be. It's not a boy. It's not a old man. It's a fatherly figure. And if you break down that fatherly figure, you would see that it has like responsibilities for the wife, like the love, which is different, and for the kids, and the financial situation, and the work, and the family situation. So it's like basically combining and balancing between all those as a fatherly figure. That's what I consider to be a man. That's what I would say attributes in a more general sense. But that's basically driven by the psychology of a man. What happens is that in psychological terms, there are different psychologies. Every person has different psychologies. In Big 5 personality types, there are 5 in MBTI. There are different kinds of personalities. But ideally, a man is the one who has a personality like a lion. Like
I mean, wouldn't that be more of an alpha male? Because, I mean, you also have beta males, you have alpha males. So
and sometimes it's also, there's a man in between that's called omega male, but that's not really a thing. So you could say that's Leo, basically. Leo, or you can, in some terms, in psychological terms, it's sometimes also called Leo, or the lion, or the alpha male in that sense. But yeah, alpha male is there. Alpha male is like more combined, like you say the personality is roughly, but when you say it's like the Leo, then it's more modern. It's like more connecting to the subtle points, because alpha male could also be like a man from like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 years ago who just like gathered meat and supplied to their wives, and so that he had. But that's not like the best. You could say as a responsibility. So what I think is that there's basically responsibilities and the boundaries he has made, so that there's the security he provides and the love, and how he balances between this.
Okay,
that's what I would say.
If I get it right, you believe that an attribute that a man should possess is, first of all, responsibility for its family, responsibility for the well-being of its house. So kind of someone that can provide while simultaneously keep them safe and make sure that they don't, for example, go off and do something that is maybe dangerous, because that's where the boundaries come from. Someone that is firm, someone that is able to set up those boundaries and say, okay, hey, this is going to hurt you, so I don't want you to go there, while simultaneously being caring, I guess. But I found it interesting because when you talked about these things, how, it should be like the responsible and the one that balances everything out. For me, maybe it's just from my personal experience, I sometimes feel like the woman is the one that balances the household more than the man in terms of at least emotions and things like that, because maybe that's just my perspective, but I feel like women have that kind of like empathy to be able to calm everything down, like maybe the man is the one that sets up the boundaries, but the woman is the one that is able to integrate those boundaries within the family structure.
Yeah, I agree with that point, but that's basically, for that point, I would say it's both the man and the woman. Yeah. That's what the balance thing. But as far as the responsibility is concerned and the boundaries, that's what basically like projects the balance. However, it's the women that like particularly balances.
Okay.
Because if you leave the man in the house alone, still you got responsibility. Still he's gonna make money and all the basic things, but it's not gonna be the ideal family, and it's gonna fall apart at some point.
So essentially, what you're saying is an intact household is when you have both sides. Not if you like the man part is the one for taking responsibility for organizing, structuring, but there has to be also a female part, another part that. But today we're trying to focus more on the male part. Yeah. Although that's difficult to do because we don't get the full picture. We also will incorporate a little bit of what is the female's part as well.
Yeah, and I think at least in our generation and just how everything is changing so drastically, like the responsibilities that a man could have taken 50 years ago are not the same that a man can take nowadays, because women also expect to be more responsible for things, or they want to be at least. So I find it interesting, at least how in the 21st century, maybe even what a man is meant to be, like the whole image of a man is going to change. It is constantly changing, I believe. It's not like something concrete. So I wonder how, this is not just something that I wonder, is, for example, it's like a trend that I see, how men are starting to become a little bit more emotional. We're starting to be more artistic. We're starting to embrace more of our female energy, while the females are actually starting to embrace more of the male energy, because they want to be more kind of like, they want to set their boundaries. They want to be more responsible. They want to be more strict. They want to, in a sense, achieve financial stability so that they're not rely upon a man anymore to provide for them, but that they can provide for themselves also. So find it just kind of intriguing how we're kind of coming to a point where it's all going to essentially melt. Like we're going to have to come into we have to harmonize with the females as well as the men, We can't, like as a man in the 21st century, I can't expect that a woman would want me to take care of her, because I know that a woman now wants to take care of herself. It's something that is very ingrained in their selves now. It's like, I don't need a man anymore to take care of myself. I want to take care of myself. Yeah. And the man is the same. I don't want a woman to take care of me. I want to take care of myself. But I think it's like, okay, how can we take care of each other? How can we work with each other so that we create something better, I'd say.
Although, to be honest, to me it seems like that more and more, at least in men, what I see is this sense of, women are taking care of themselves now, nice, now I'll stay at home, or I don't know if this has to do with women getting more emancipated, but I see a lot of men who are just comfortable staying at home until they're 40, staying with their mom, like hotel mama.
Yeah,
It's
but I mean,
it actually becoming a term in Germany. But like really, this men are not like.
but that's not
I
a man
absolutely
though.
agree.
That's a boy.
Yeah, that's a
Like,
boy.
there's a difference
Men
between a
are
man
not.
and a boy.
Yeah, men are not growing up anymore,
No, but
or like boys are not growing up.
yes,
Hmm.
it's in Spain. We have the same thing. It's called niños, or something like that,
Yeah,
which
that's
is neither
children.
studying nor working.
Mm.
Just kind of like, you grow up. You're a mama's boy. You have everything. There's no drive for you to leave home because you're comfortable. But I think that's a little bit different from like the societal structure. It's just the type of person you are, how you were brought up. If your family doesn't push you to actually go out there and say, hey, you can't live here your whole life, we're not going to take care of you your whole life. You have to become a man. Then you're never going to grow up. Like my mom, I applied for colleges here. I didn't know if I wanted to come to Sweden. And she said, no, you're taking the plane and you're leaving. So she essentially not kicked me out, but gave me the little kick that I needed for me to actually go out and become a man instead of just being a boy my whole life.
Yeah.
So I think that's something more of a responsibility of the family than anything.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I have like this biblical perspective. I read the Jordan Peterson's biblical lectures and heard him. So it's like in the Bible. It's explained. I mean, what we're talking about is it's explained in a more mythological sense. It's purely mythological. But then, if you could crack it down, if you could like break it down, what it really means is that it's the same thing. For example, Paulo talked about his family situation and his childhood in the last episode of the same podcast. He said that he was raised with his mother, but not with the father that much.
Yep.
So that impacted your whole personality.
Yes.
And now I can see. So in fact, actually, the same thing happened with me because my father was like he's a electronics engineer in Indian Railways. So his job was like 24/7 kind of thing. It wasn't like half his job. It's like very dynamic. So he used to be out most of the time. Sometimes he'd come back. That kind of thing. So that influence wasn't on me. That's and now I can see that it reflects in my own personality that there's a less of a fatherly influence and more like a maternal influence. So that's also one point that how men are shaped in that sense. But one thing to note is that a boy, should be in a more psychological person, should be raised with the mother more than the father. But he should live with the mother more with the father, and a girl with the father. Yeah. So that they become they get able to love their partners in their life. That's how it is. But if it's opposite, then there's a serious problem and serious conflict with their own personality when they grow up. And then when they try to create a relationship, it's a serious thing, and I think that this is the point. This is like the base of how it reflects into different people's personalities, and that's what makes them like different people. Like you said, in Spain it is called niñas, and they are different, whereas other people are very manly. That's how basically it happens because of how they were raised, how they were basically their genetics, and how they like cope up with the problems, the situations they face, and how their family support them or not.
I think what I found interesting is because I was talking to my mom just about this the other day as well, and she told me that I think it was 70% of kids in Mexico are actually raised by single mothers. So. It's very sad, but like when you look at it, it's like, whoa, how is that going to affect society in the next 10 to 15 years? That's going to have a huge effect. And I think that's something that we're seeing now, at least more than ever before, because really, I feel like in the past 20, 30 years, the fathers haven't been very responsible. They kind of like, just gone ahead and done whatever the fuck they wanted to do because they thought it was allowed. So I think it's interesting how this is also shaping our society. And that's like, for me at least, the one thing that I would say to someone that's about to have kids is, if you have kids, make sure you can handle the responsibility. And if you can't handle the responsibility, get your shit together and handle the responsibility anyways.
Yeah.
Like, don't walk away from it, you know? You brought someone into this world, make sure you do everything for them. Like, it's not about you anymore. So...
Exactly. And I mean, this is where I really highly, highly respect my father. Because, I mean, I had conversations with him where he talked to me about also his family back in Brazil, where basically all of my uncles and aunts have been divorced and have kids all over the place. But my father, he really said, like, this is my family and this is where I want to stay. And he had hard times, but I highly, highly respect him for what he gave up, what he sacrificed for our family, and for what he went through. And it's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, we really don't learn this in our society anymore. I mean, I'm not so sure how much schools should talk about this, but really actually families is where this should be taught and talked about. But then again, a lot of families don't have a father in the family who does that, who takes the responsibility and who lives by example. And
I think that's been the more religious or more educated side of a man, of a father, comes into play. Because see, if there's a man, he has a family, but he doesn't have a fine education or a religious background and a moral structure, the whole structure that he lives by, that a principle, a code that at least, not to say that very much in every single area of one's life, but at least he must do this or he must not do this. He should have this, because when they don't have this, and when they are more randomly acting in the society, more randomly projected by different forces of attractions, they get pulled towards different forces, and they lose control, and they lose the track of the things that they must do. For example, the family. So that what happens is that they separate from their wives, and then they have to raise their children. The wife has to raise their children alone, and the man is going away, or maybe he has the daughter, and the mother has the son, and it's like different like random experiences that go on, which like basically shapes the whole future of a child. And that's what's going to impact our society in the long run. Now, if you see the psychopaths, or if you see a lot of what you could say, non-social people who are creating violence and basically chaos in our society, they are raised by such parents. Basically, I wrote an article about a psychopath. Basically, a psychopath is not officially claimed to be a psychopath, but it's basically is. He killed 17 children and a few more teachers in a school shooting in Florida last February. Into February
2018.
Sorry, in 2017. Actually.
Okay.
2017. Okay. So he did that, and I'm actually not sure about the 17 or 18. I'm sorry about that. Okay. But I wrote this article. It was part of my course in psychology. So he was living with his mother's sister or someone in the family, and he somehow had a gun, and he was not very well. Still, you can see the family situations clearly that he wasn't raised very well. He was like 19 years old, and he was living with mother's sister. Now you can imagine, they are into their own things. Yep. They're taking care of their own family situations, financial and other situations, including their children and everything. And he's living with them. And so what he did is one day he was just fascinated about these guns and things. And he wasn't very social, and he took a gun one day, a big gun, like a sniper or something like that, and he took an Uber, went to the school, and shot like as many people as he saw, as he encountered, and there were like about 16 people killed. It's a massive thing.
So essentially, he wasn't able to develop some type of empathy. Like his empathetic ability was just not there, essentially.
And that's basically because of the family. How he was brought up, how he was influenced by them. That distraction and the imbalance that was created, which made him this way. And now his life is totally ruined. Like he's probably in a mental asylum or maybe in a jail if they didn't clarify him to be a psychopath or totally disturbed.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this kind of also ties a little bit to what we were talking about in the beginning. Not necessarily that a man only has also responsibility or is one of the parts that takes responsibility in your family. It's also that if you have a mother and a father, you can split the work. Like, basically, each child is as much work as a full-time job, pretty much. Like, you're 24/7, you have this little creature that cannot take any responsibility for itself, doesn't have any, control over its own body, partially. And, you have to put a lot of time and emphasis. And especially when a single mother has, 2-3 children, it's not said that those kids will be, psychopaths or will have some kind of problem afterwards, but it definitely increases the probability. And so it is a very difficult, very bad situation.
The case that I discussed is that an extreme
exactly.
of that thing. It could be even low. And and in other cases, the thing what that even in our classroom, if you look, there might have been some students that have been raised in this way, and they are not coping very well. Even though they're fine in studying, but they're mentally mentally not satisfied with the life and with the relationships, and they're in a discomfort, in a constant discomfort.
I think when it comes down to at least as when you're a kid, really the only thing that you're seeking for is this love. That's it. You want to be appreciated. You want to be encouraged, and it is important to have your father and your mother, because I think that's something that you always kind of compare yourself to. At least when I was growing up, I would constantly compare myself to the life of others. And something that I was always longing for was I literally just wanted to have a normal family, go home, sit down with my mom and dad, eat dinner, ask about my day. That's it. But I never got that. But what I did get was a lot of love. Love from my family, love from my cousins, love from my aunts, love from my uncles. So that love actually helped me develop better than if I didn't have that love. So in that situation where, for example, you're talking about the kid that was brought or that lived with a sister or mom's sister, in that case, if the mom's sister doesn't give the love, then that's what happens, because that kid is resentful now. He feels like he's in a situation where his parents left him out and his family, that's supposed to be family, is not taking care of him. And, it's family is always kind of a tricky business, because kind of people that are family, we feel we're the ones that hurt family is the one that hurts us the most, because we feel like we can do whatever the fuck we want towards them and they will still love us. So we're very, in a sense, mean towards our family. We're not necessarily very caring about them in that sense, because if I say fuck you or something like that and you're my family, we're family, 2 months or something like that, we're gonna love each other, because that's kind of the way it's supposed to be. It's family. You're supposed to love your family. Exactly. Whereas with friends, for example, you want to care for them and you don't want to overstep them because you're afraid of losing them. Because friends is something that you choose. You don't choose your family.
No.
But you can choose how you love your family, which is important. And that's, I believe, something that is not taught, And, at least from my family perspective, I know there's a lot of, I wouldn't say problems, but baggage that my family has within themselves, inner conflicts between all my aunts and uncles. And then I can see that being transported into my cousins and all that stuff. So there's always drama in family. And there has to be a point when someone in the family comes along and says, hey, you know what? Your family, you have to actually love each other. You have to get rid of the bounds of the family trauma that has been brought up for such a long time, because this is a trauma that we literally carry in our genes, like an ancestral trauma. It's not something that just happens. You're born into that situation and you carry that shit with you. So I think it's important that as a man or as any person, you're actually able to see your family situation, to revise it, to see what type of love, to see what type of how you were brought up, and decide what type of family you want to have, and make sure you don't have the same family as the one that, or when you actually create a family, make sure you don't bring on those problems. Make sure you actually work them through and are able to create something different, you know?
Exactly.
Whereas,
so that your kids have it better than you have.
Exactly. Whereas if you go unconsciously, not thinking about these things, not dealing with your personal problems, not dealing with your emotions, when you have those families, those patterns and those behaviors that were subconsciously given to you when you were raised up are going to be reflected.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, and I really like what you said there, and it's really like this. I mean, we are, in some sense, a reflection of what our surrounding is.
Yes.
But it's important to notice that's not all we are.
No.
We have a conscious part, and we have responsibility for what we do. I mean, if we were just a reflection of our surrounding, we could be like, yeah, well, whatever, I just killed this guy because I had a bad childhood, and why are you punishing me for it? Well, because you have a choice.
Yes,
you have a responsibility.
It's kind of like this thing where you may not have any control upon the things that are happening around you, the things that have happened to you. But the only power that you have is how you actually respond to them. Not react, but respond. Because there's a difference between reacting and responding. Mm-hmm. When you react to something, someone says something to me, I react immediately. I react out of a place, out of a habit.
Subconsciously.
Exactly. Out of a habit.
Yeah.
Whereas if I respond, okay, you say something to me, I assimilate the information, I reflect it. Okay, this is it. How do I choose? Do I choose to go from a place of hate or hurt that it's going to hurt this person? Not because the person is hurting you, you know? Like it's this thing like when someone is angry at you, we take it so personal. Like this person is angry at us. It's not that they're angry at you. You're probably just reflecting something that they haven't worked upon. They're angry at this previous situations that are being reflected right now. So we have to, like, when we get angry at a person, why am I angry? Okay, if I'm angry, okay, I'm angry. But I'm not going to say anything mean. I acknowledge that I'm angry. I'm going to stay angry, but I'm not going to, push it out there.
Yeah.
So it's like build up the anger or whatever the reflection was, that it was built up and then it exploded at one time. So that's how it happens. And I see that how our like psyche basically get affected by the social situation, the family situation, and how we react and respond to different kinds of situations, and how we grow up. Like this 7, 10, or like you could say first 15 years of life, they matter a lot for the whole entire life. So even though we are from like totally different continents, not even from countries, like you're from North America, I'm from Asia, and you're from Europe, so it's like totally different continents, but still we can like integrate and agree on the same point, that how this is basically how the psychology works, and that's what impacts the society and how we live, and if we are happy or not, and how we like cope up with the life.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It really reminded me of the song Papa Outé from Stromae. Do you know it?
No.
It's a French artist, rapper, and he has this song Papa Outé, which is French for Daddy, where are you? And there in the music video, it's this boy who is kind of observing, looking around. He's like in this little village with different houses, and all he has is like a doll that kind of looks like him, older, and you see like, okay, probably that's a doll that represents his father, but the father's not there, it's just this puppet. And so when he looks outside, he sees like whatever, this mother with his daughter, like they're bringing mail or something, and then there's this father who is taking care of the trashes, and he has his little boy and teaches him. And so this little boy, the main character there, is watching them and seeing like how the parents are always influencing their sons or their kids. And during this whole video, all he has is this doll, and whatever, kicks a ball against it and tries to play football, but no response. And so towards the end of the song, then in the end of the song, he just sits down in exactly the same position as the doll and kind of freezes there, and then he becomes the doll. And the song is about like this longing of a child to ask, Dad, where are you? Like, fathers, come on, like you have a huge responsibility. And it's a very, I like that song. It's a very deep message and very important as well.
I think I had this experience like 2 weeks ago, or no, like not 2 weeks ago, like a week ago with my father, because I've been very open about my father's situation. So I think what I found interesting is, when you were talking about this story, I just got the chills because it reminded me a lot of the things that I was thinking of when I was little. It's this kind of like longing for a father, because it was never there. But I think what I noticed the most, at least, and something that I didn't see before, is with my father there was always. So I should say that my father didn't have an easy life. He had a very difficult life. He was an orphan for his whole life, and then after he got adopted, there was a lot of shady stuff there. So it wasn't, he didn't know what a family was like. He never had that. So once he actually had a family, it was very difficult for him to actually take responsibility for it because no one had taken responsibility for him before that. He didn't know how to. It was impossible. So he's been calling me, like he's been trying to reconnect with me for the past year or something like that. And what I find interesting is that now that I'm starting to do good with school and I have a big project coming on, like I'd say in the past 4 months, he would call me every month and a half. And then once he listened or he figured out that, oh, hey, he has a big project, he started calling me weekly, like to ask me about it. And the other day he called me and I just picked up the phone because I had a meeting and he was like, how did your meeting go? And, I was like, hey, I don't like it when you call me just to ask me these things because you're not asking me about me. You're not asking me about how I am. Like now that I somehow have something, I matter to you. So I remember I told him that and he was like, oh, I'm sorry to bother you. And he hanged up and that's it. And it was this pattern that I realized at that moment. He's always done that. Like whenever, it's like this thing with children, right? Children always kind of reflect unconsciously the things which we dislike the most about ourselves so that we need to change. It's like that there's a reflection, a clear reflection, like a kid like, why are you lying, or all these things, right? And you hear him say that and you're like, I'm not lying, but am I lying? And you feel insecure. So they reflect a lot of our insecurities. So if you're not a very secure person and you're not able to handle them and not take them personally, then you're not going to be able to love your kid in the proper manner. So what I noticed is that every time I would tell him something uncomfortable, he would just leave. He would do that so many times. Like for 2 years, he would disappear. If I would make him uncomfortable, he would just leave. So then I tried to call him again and he wouldn't answer. And I sent him a message and I was like, if you ever truly want to fix this relationship, you have to understand that I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to understand you. But most importantly, if we want to have a father-son situation, we have to be able to communicate whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. You have to be there when the good times and the bad times. You can't just leave your kid when it gets bad. You can't just do that. It's stupid to do that. The kid is going to have problems. The kid is going to have hard times. You're going to have hard times. And you have to move together. And that's like the crucial thing. Take responsibility, but also, be there for them in the hardest moments.
And what the family should be.
Yes.
In the same realm of things. Like you're here studying, so you should be like, ideally, not to say that he should be, but in ideal case, if we take you as a model here and take him as a model, not considering the background particularly, but still like take in the same situation, in the same realm of reality, like you're facing some problems, you're studying abroad, and there are a lot of things that you're good at, but also like your bad points and pros and cons are there. So you should be like up to the same point where you are, and on the same level of communication.
Yes.
Like I have this problem with my family is that they think that it's not really it's not really helpful to study abroad. They know that it has its benefits and things like that, but they don't say that you should necessarily be studying abroad in a better university to cope up. They don't support that thing, but they support me a lot. So we have this conflict sometimes. But then I talk, and then there's a lot of conflict and a lot of fights and things like that. But still, we're on the same realm.
Yeah.
When we are on the same realm, we take out a decision, and that pushes me or them for the success, for the positivity, and for the next level.
Yes, exactly.
But when we are not on the same level, then there's always this conflict, and then we go hard, and it never works out in that situation.
So there's harmony. Yeah. So we should start to just wrap it all up for the last 10 minutes. So let's see. So we discussed a little bit about what do you believe to be attributes of man. So someone that's able to set limits, take responsibility, balance it out the family. Then we also went on and discussed a little bit about the psyche of man. And we didn't necessarily discuss the psyche of woman very much.
No.
Yeah.
But I think it would be more appropriate to actually have a woman to discuss those things anyways. Then we talked about a little bit of the roles of families. So also the responsibility that men should have in families. We are encouraging fathers to step up and take responsibility. Don't be a dick, essentially. So I don't know if you guys want to do like any last comments or anything that you guys want to tell people, or would you like to say anything?
I would say about the women's psychology, or what they think to be right or wrong, or what they think they are. It's good to have a woman, but the thing is that a woman usually at our age, in this kind of situation, a usual normal student like us, would be reflecting onto her own own self, like what she thinks and figures out. But I don't think that but again, then here it comes to the man and women point. She can't conclude the whole topic that we are doing alone.
Yeah.
She needs us, and we need her to reflect herself, and then we can point out that this is because of this. This is because of this part of psyche, or this kind of psychology is there, and this kind of social situation is there. So basically, that's how balance is going on, and we could wrap up things.
And we can also see more of ourselves within her as well. Like she can point out some of the not flaws, but some of the things that she sees in a man, or things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be about women. But I think that the topic was about the man, what it means to be a man, basically. And I think we talked about in a more clear and a wide sense, from 3 different perspectives here, and from different countries and the different cultural backgrounds,
different upbringings as well.
Upbringings, but we all agreed on the same thing, that it's about the whole upbringing and the love that's provided. It's basically what we talked about. So it's just to wrap up, I would say that it's how you grow up, how you interact with the society in general, how you interact with your surroundings. Like this is a spider here, and how does he produces a spider web around him, which direction you go, and things like that. So it's revolving around. That's what I would say we basically discussed here. And but why I brought up this point, that I think that the responsibility is the main thing, is because I've been into these very esoteric topics of reality that usually people don't even know about these things. Like, for example, occults and astrology, and some different topics that I shouldn't bring up here, and that's why I didn't. But there was this. There's always this truth that's coming out of things. You understand, you make this whole perception create. So that's what I gathered from it. That it's a responsibility. This fatherly figure. It's like a figure, like a judge in the jury. It's like that, and it's something like that. Not exactly, of course, but it's the vibe
Yeah.
The perception is the same. So from the perception, as we are talking here, we could like break it down. That's what we did basically. So I would say that's how this went, and that's what it was. Basically.
Yeah. And also probably important to mention, like, we are influenced by our society, but it's always important to remember you as a person, you have the responsibility.
Yes.
So whether you're a man or a woman, you have a lot of baggage that you bring with your life, but especially when you are planning to create a family, it is very important that you get aware of what things are that you are carrying with you, and that you also, in some way or another, deal with certain things before you bring them into a family and
even into a relationship, really.
Even in a relationship, that's when you start figuring out things, because oftentimes you can't really find out things that are wrong, because before, when you're just in a family, everything is normal for you, or when you're by yourself. But when you are in a relationship, that's when you find out things about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I would say more like friendships isn't like in general. I would say just reflect upon your own perspective a lot. Like have a relationship with yourself.
Yeah,
that's what I would say. Be able like understand yourself fully. Seek first to understand yourself. That's like the basis. Woman, man, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Understand yourself first. Clear your lens of perception. Sometimes they're very cloudy. It kind of our experiences do shift us very, very extremely sometimes. So it's important to see beyond them, to see clearly, to not attach to the pain, to not attach to the experiences, but you as your most loving self, really, the part of you that just wants to connect, that wants to help, come from that place, stand it, and then move on more accordingly, I would say. But
and I guess we can leave it at this point. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Sumit, for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been very nice talking on this part. Although I wasn't like into this topic, basically, but it's still like I gathered all my understandings and thoughts to this point and revolved around and didn't go like distracted, because I usually get too much distracted and into other stuff. But yeah, it's been very nice, and I'm looking forward for maybe other topics that we could discuss.
You're more than welcome to come anytime. And for you guys listening, if you have any comments, you can just go to our Facebook page. The links will be in the description below. It's called This Is Our Story, The Journey. So, and if you would like any topics to be discussed, also let us know. Constructive criticism is always appreciated. And
exactly. And up until March, was it, or April, we already have a schedule with different topics. So if you're interested in any of those, you can send us a message or leave us just a message in the group or on the Facebook page that you would be interested in joining us on a specific topic. Or if you have topics yourself, we can add them, expand the schedule. And thank you very much for listening all the way.
And
see you next time.
Bye-bye.